Hello dear chess friends, my name is Marko Makaj, I am FIDE master from Croatia and I record this video for great chess teaching site Remote Chess Academy. The topic for our today lesson or video will be the squeezing in the equal endgames. So, today I would like to show you how to play the equal endgames and when and how you can find a way to play for a win. This is especially important because at some stage in tournament or in the game you need to play for a win even in the equal positions. Here in the table you can see the first game that I will show today to you, and it's a real game and it's my own endgame and the game against the international grandmaster Attila Čebe from the Hungary, which has been played the last year in the second Croatian Liga on the first table. Here I play with black pieces and out from the opening I managed to exchange the queens and get to really equal endgame. Here I need to play for a win because my team was behind, and what I really need here is start to play for a win. Okay, first, because the game or the position is equal, I need to find my own way and chance how to try to expose something from my opponent. In reality, I in this game really like the black position because here I have few of very nice pieces. First of all, I have this beautiful rook on b4, very active piece that play not only on the b file but also on a fourth rank. Second thing really important is that I have the other rook perfectly placed on the e file that work only not on the e file but in reality also on the 8th rank, where when it needed he can go on b8. Now I also have the 3 pawns islands, and it looks like that white pawn chain is slightly better than black, but once again it's not something like this, because you can see that I can easily exchange the a pawn for one of those pawns, and then what will happen is that the other white pawn can be slightly weak. So first of all, you can find, or you need to find, the way how to deal with the position. My first stage in this game is to exchange the a pawn when I would like to make one weak pawn in the white's camp. And because of this, white play here the first move b3. Now he needs to protect this pawn on b2, and he played b3 because this is the slightly better way how to dealing with it, because if he in reality play rook to c2, then this rook will need to be on the second rank. Now if I don't play very aggressively and actively, the next white move will be rook to c5, and then maybe probably the rook to a5, the second rook will game to c1, and it looks like that it's not much for black that he can do there. So basically the only move that black can do and the best move in this position is concretely a5. Now he played the e3 just to protect the other pawn, and a4. Very aggressive move that wants to make down this idea that I introduced with a5, a4. And maybe important to say and show to you is why e3 is also a very nice move for white, because in the reality he would like to play bishop to d1 and then probably maybe take with bishop on b3, not to expose the pawn weakness ab after I exchange my a pawn. Now I forced a4 and he played bishop to d1. And very important moment here arises. I have few of the nicest moves here. Probably two of them are very concrete, and the first move that is here looking very natural is a takes on b3, but I didn't like to take on b3 here, because if I take on b3 and he take with the bishop on b3, now they will not be for me most of the chance to take this a pawn, and this bishop on b3 really nicely attack the pawn on d5. So basically after the moves like rook f to d1, it will be enough counterattack for white to equalize completely and probably make a draw here. And because of this and the fact that I need to play for a win, and okay, I assume that I'm slightly better there, I go for one other plan that is really concrete, and I think I was here very creative. And what I introduce here is the move d4. Now, it looks like that it's not a beautiful move, and I just would like to exchange a couple of pawns, but in the reality it's something very opposite to that. So basically with this I play for the tactic here, and what I would like to do is, for instance, if he take on d4, I have the move bishop to h3, where I can take the exchange, because now you can see that this rook cannot move himself to e1, because my rook from e8 will take this rook on e1 with checkmate. So very powerful attack on the white rook, who doesn't have the chance to escape. And because of this, he can't take on d4 with the pawn. And okay, white best move here was to play something like a3, because a3 will somehow stop me from advancing on the queen side. And for instance, if I now and I need to go back with the rook, probably on b6 or on b7, doesn't really matter, then he can play even the b4. And after I take, let's say, on e3, he can take on e3, and after rook a3 he can take on probably later on a4 after he play rook f3. And once again it will be about equal endgame. Okay, I once again can start to play for a win, but I think that white has enough potential to make a draw. And because I make the pressure on him, he made the mistake here, and in reality after d4 he takes with the pawn on a4, and somehow he tried to show me that I don't have enough for this exchange. And after bishop h3 he even sacrificed the rook on f1. So once again, clearly better solution was to play, let's say, bishop to b3, now cover the b file and play aggressively and actively. Now he made the final mistake, take the pawn on d4, and I managed to squeeze him to death in this endgame. After king f1 I take on d4, he play bishop to b3, and I play rook c8. Now after rook c5, the move which do not allow me to move forward with this pawn, I just need to find a way. Okay, now this is the technically winning endgame. I just need to find the right way or the plan how to deal with the position. I easily managed to find him because it's not really hard. First of all, I would like to activate my first rook on the d file. After he moved the pawn on a5, okay, this pawn will not go deeper enough. I can go with the king closer to the center. So this is the second very important and concrete thing. You want to not only to introduce more aggressive way of dealing or playing with all other pieces, but also with the king. The king is also very important piece in the endgame. And after king e1, it doesn't allow him to go and advance with the king. h4, king e7, rook c4, king d6, rook a4, rook a8. So you can see with every single move I make very concrete plans. I would like to take now the a pawn, after which the game will be over. a6, rook a7, just wants to stab the pawn from advancing, and after king f1, f6 and h5, king c7, g4 and king b6. This game is practically over because there is no way for him to defend this pawn on a6, after which I managed to completely taking over the aggression, and with two of the rooks I easily managed to win this technical game at the end. So this is the first example where you can see how you can start squeezing for the win in the situation or in the equal endgames. Here you can see the second game that I choose, and it's somehow different than the first one. I would like to show you how to play even in the Queen's endgame that is also about equal. So we have now the endgame that arrives once again in my own game against the FIDE master Milan Brigljevic from Croatia. I played this game, I believe, in 2013. So I was white here, and after the middle game, I found myself in this end game. And on the first sight, looks like the game is about equal. And I believe it is, with just slight advantage, maybe just teeny tie advantage for white, because if you look at slightly more carefully, you will see that this pawn on c5 somehow control the dark squares, and because of this pawn and the pawns on the king side, this light square bishop doesn't play significant role in this endgame. And because of this, black needs to be careful not to get into trouble, and you'll see later that he made the mistake, and I squeeze him and win the game. Now, this is somehow a different game and the approach than in the approach from the first game, where I just would like to exchange the a pawn and then advancing with my d pawn. Here, what I want to do is to somehow open the game because this king is somehow slightly more exposed than white, and if I manage to open the position of the king with some kind of the checks, I will probably maybe even take the bishop on c8. So this is my first idea in this endgame, and the last move from white was king to h2 after he gives me the check on d1. Now he moves the queen to e2 with the idea of tied my bishop on the second rank, but it's not in the reality nice idea, because the queen is much better placed on d1 than on e2. The second thing that is probably bother him is the opportunity for me e5, but I don't really have such a big thing by playing e5, because if I move the e5 and for instance he managed to exchange this pawn, I will probably get very equal endgame, and because of this he needs to play here, for instance, queen d8, the move that will get and stay with the queens on d file, and will also manage to not allow me e5, because for instance if he goes with queen back to d8 and I put the pawn on e5, he can easily just play queen to e7, and now if I take on f6, he'll take with the queen, and it now, no matter if I take the queen or not, for instance if I take, I also can find myself in the danger, because this king is now really fast, and my pawn on c5 probably at some stage can be at risk. So it's not the best way how to handle this position, and probably I will not play e5, but something similar, like maybe queen a3, or for instance maybe even queen to b2. So just to stay in the game and to make waiting moves and see how he will react. Instead of this, he played queen to e2, and now allow me really powerful move f5. Now, why f5? Because now I start playing against this bishop on c8. The problem for him now is that I have a lot more space, and for instance if I manage to bring the queen on d4, then I will completely cut all of his pieces out of the play. And in reality this is something that happens. It's not clear for black now how he needs to continue. Once again, probably the best answer will be queen to d1, because what he really needs to do is not allow me to play queen to d4, after which he will find himself in really a big trouble. But he played h5, one move that also doesn't, not only that doesn't make sense because it's a really slow move in the position where I managed to get really big advantage with queen d4, but also when you start advancing with the pawns in the endgame, you need to be very careful because those pawns doesn't go back and they can be really easy exposed later, and this is something that will happen in this game. And now I play here queen d4, and this is the move that I want to explain you and basically show you how centralization in the chess can be really important. You can see that both of the players has the queens on the board, but in reality it's only one queen on the board because this black queen doesn't do anything and this white queen completely dominate over the board. So the centralization, especially in the queen's endgame, is really important. And now this queen can even fight against this bishop because, for instance, after queen d8, there is no way for him to start or to stop me from taking the bishop on c8. And now he played h4, the move that is somehow not allowing me queen to d8, because after now something like queen d8, he will have the option of taking on g3, and after I take on g3, he will manage to probably make a draw because I cannot escape from the perpetual check. I saw the idea and there is no need to rush. I can handle this position even without the queen d8, and because of this I first play here the move g takes on h4. Now he take on h4 and I play queen to d6. So you can see I easily dominate over the board. I don't need to allow him any kind of the checks on f4, and now I prepare queen e7 or queen f4, and you see I can now try to take this or this pawn or this bishop. So basically he has three very big weaknesses, and white is now completely winning. He played queen to b2. He wants to not allow me to take this pawn on f6, but here I have some other idea. Okay, it's no need once again to rush and take the bishop on c8, because then on the dark squares black can try to make the perpetual. So I play queen to c7, and after king h6 I play queen f4, and after he play king g7 I take on h4, and now the position is easily winning for me because there is no way for him to make the perpetual, and once again I have just equal chances there against this bishop on c8. So now it's only the matter of technique. And after b6, queen g3, king h7, I take eventually on b6, he play c5 and I play e5, and now in the reality the game is over. If he take with the queen, I promote the pawn with b7. If he doesn't, he play queen b6, then I can mate him with queen g6, king h8, king h6, and now he resigned because the next move after he play king g8 will be bishop d5, and I will checkmate him in very few next moves. So this was the video about the play in the equal endgames. In both of the games you can see that I managed to outplay my opponent with a very active play and with the I will say creative ideas. Now what I want to introduce to you as the conclusions is first thing, very important thing, is to play actively with all your pieces, especially with the king, if of course there is no mating treat to him. You try first to find, then after you find, you need to make and then to expose the opponent weaknesses. Here you can see that I make the weakness one pawn on f6, the other on h6, and the bishop on c8 was very weak. After you manage to do this, use the whole board, and you can see here, especially in the queen's endgames, you need to use the whole board, and with check somehow you can sometimes take the pawn or maybe the piece. And the most important maybe things is that in the end game you need to be very careful with the pawns, because the pawns doesn't goes back.